Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you live around the world. The other day, I made a video and deleted it, but I was talking about what we see in front of us right now, and that is the hub made from a tube, a steel tube, and how I could perhaps have a threaded bolt or heavy construction screw inserted, but that it needed to have an interface, this is what I'm calling the interface, where it has a square and flush surface for the bolt and the washer, etc., to bed against. Otherwise, it could load up the bolt or the nut and cause problems. Now, to be fair, in a dome situation, I don't think those loads would be that great that it would be a particular problem. For my instance, for no other reason than it's just a sheer guess, I says let's use a 12mm bolt or thread. In this case, as we see here, a threaded rod cut to length, wound into the timber, much more than I'm showing here, but wound into the timber to give withdrawal properties that I'd be comfortable with in the end grain of the timber. So I prattled on endlessly, as I'm wont to do too often, and I was showing all the different iterations that this could have or could be achieved by, and I made a comment about a piece of solid steel similar to this but much bigger, where it had a nice gentle arc and it would interface easily with the steel hub. And I thought, but I kind of rejected it because of its complexity and the size of it. Then I was thinking, here, hang on a minute. In this case, this is a 20mm round piece of solid steel that's been faced off and then drilled with the requisite diameter hole. It needs to be a little bit sloppy, bit of tolerance in it to allow a little bit of accommodation. But I thought, oh, that might be a jolly good idea, because this is infinitely adjustable as it can rotate on its own surface against the steel hub. Well, that's my theory, at least. I'm going to have to go out and try it, aren't I? But I was thinking, in this case, I was initially thinking of a 100mm diameter hub, or steel pipe, but then when I took one of my models, I've already sized it up to be, in this case, 114mm. Now, there's a reason for that I'd forgotten. But it is, probably the reason for this video was, sometimes we have to hear the words being spoken in our head said out loud. And perhaps in a video, in a diary type of scenario, you can revise them and hear the wisdom or the stupidity of your own thoughts said out loud. In this case, it was, that's a good idea. Why didn't I follow that up a wee bit more previously? So this time I did. However, as I was pondering, I thought, hang on a minute. I drew this up and rotated the pair of bolts around evenly, 60 degrees, evenly around the hub. However, struts aren't spaced evenly. They are spaced unevenly. In this case, you've almost got, well, we can say 90 degrees between these two. Well, that's more than 60, which means that these other ones don't have as much space to be able to be spaced at, and you start to get this problem and congestion. Now you go, oh yeah, but there's clearances there. Yeah, not much. When you're trying to get a nut onto that thread, it will hit this bolt here. you will not get this nut onto this bolt in this position, or vice versa this one. Yes, you could say, well, in that case you'd need to use screws in that position, and quite rightly so. I agree. Here's the thing. I also said that while the top bolt in the story in my head could be a screw, the bottom set of bolts could be accommodated on the tube with slots, which means you could pre-install all your fittings on the threaded rods, and then just being left loose slightly, you could slip the tube and strut combination onto each other and just tighten the nuts up. Now that is a solution. Of course, there is an alternative solution, and that's to use a bigger hub. Doesn't have to be a lot. Go from 114mm diameter to, I don't know, 120, 125, but it becomes an issue of availability and cost, of course, but the availability becomes a real issue. What's the thickness? Oh, these are just mock-ups, of course, in my mind. I made this approximately 6mm thick, so that's a fairly heavy bit of steel. So I'm just going to bring in a selection chart from a local supplier, and let's just have a look. And there it is, and we've got, this is probably the area that I'm talking about. The thicknesses of the wall is here, as I understand it. So you would be able to, if we started out at 114 as in the drawing, the next step up in this particular selection of tube is here, 141. So that's where we were, very thick wall. 125, 6.5. That is pretty serious tubing. Or we could come to here, 140 and 5mm, which is probably a little bit more understandable. Even 5mm is very, very thick. Now there probably will be other tubes of different, well that's a gas pipe, of different diameter. What's this? Well, that's rectangular section, that's not going to help us. So we've got pipe here, boiler tube, not so much. So this is where I'm going with my thinking, availability. And it may well be that yes, this is available, but at what cost and reliability? And do we really need to go to that extent for a dome? The fact that you can just go buy a length of it and get it cut to a specific length for your hubs has got a lot of appeal to me. But even that will have to be factored in the cost of. Hence why, and I drag his name into the conversation once again, Paul Robinson is often said that the hubless design type of dome construction is the better way to go. I eliminate the procurement of said tube or the need to have a water jet cut, laser cut, plasma cut hub with the plates and the tabs on them. I forgo that complexity and cost for a hubless design. And it's only going through these permutations that allows me to come up with this realization that Paul was right all along. Why fight a successful approach? Well, there's lots of reasons I like this particular style of dome. visually, and I don't probably appreciate the same or similar type of dome built with the hubless approach. But which one would be the wise thing to do? And I've got no idea. That's why I keep on making these videos, because it's as much exorcising my inner thought demons to see whether I come up with a solution. And even this conversation I'm having to myself on screen is, there's issues that need to be countered here. Do they become, the word of the week, problematic, to the point where you just say, nah, I'm not going to go down that route. I will put aside my aesthetic ideas and go with the more practical one, a la hubless design. More considerations? Yes. But here we have looked at the interface component. Perhaps it will work. I think so. The major benefit of this is that this can be used in any of the different positions, angle-wise, because not all the struts, of course, butt up to the hub at the same angle, so therefore you need something that can accommodate this issue, and I think that does. Still need them for the screws, true, but the screws are much easier to insert than the bolts, but that hubless design looks better and better all the time. And with that, I am going to wander off and do something productive outside. How's that for an idea? Rightio, I'll leave you alone and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.